Hello and welcome to this very special Occhi webinar. I'm David Emmanuel Noel. I'm a co-director of Occhi Arts Entertainment, and this forms part of the Caribbean Fine Art Fair 2022 program. Please visit the artists on Caribbean Global. Today I'm honoured to be joined by Cheryl D. Miller, African-American graphic designer, Christian minister, writer, artist and historian. Known for contributions to racial and gender equality in the graphic design field and establishing one of the first Black women-owned design firms in New York City. Some of her many clients include BET, Chase and American Express. So firstly, thank you, Joel, for joining us. And it's always interesting looking at your background and reading some of your accomplishments to investigate how more about your background and how it became that you are working in the fields you've worked and obviously made such an impact. So I think my first question would be, can you share with us your experience growing up in the 50s and 60s and how it led to the career in the arts, and particularly a career in graphic design?
Yes. Well, I got exposed. Well, first off, David, it's great to be with you and your audience and the community. Much success to all of the art endeavors and the gallery and the show for us in this season. And that's a great question to start. I was exposed early to the arts. My parents, I grew up in Washington, D.C., and my parents met at Howard University. And uniquely, my mom came up from the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Thomas. She came up to be a part of Freedmen's Hospital School of Nursing. She was on the nursing corps. So she came up to go to college, and she met my dad. They got married after graduation. She was supposed to return back to St. Thomas, and he talked her into staying. And so thus I was born and raised in Washington, post-civil rights, pre-civil rights, civil rights, and post-civil rights era in the Mid-Atlantic. And that Howard University exposure from my parents, their friends, it was kind of interesting, their cadre of friends. And my godmother was a painter, and my father had a best friend who was a photographer. And these things somewhat caught my attention young, their friends, the work that their friends were involved in. And also this is transitional time when television shows were originally radio, and television just got on the scene as a new medium. Something like the kids are grabbing iPads now. The television was new, and so there was some. I grew up in the era of black and white television, and then by the time I was 10, it was transitioning to color TV. Yeah, and so in that area, there were some interesting things going on television-wise as a new medium. Mickey Mouse Club. So animation was beginning, the cartoons. We had, like the kids now have Bob Ross, we had a guy on TV doing charcoal drawings, John Nagy. And also it was the era of art studies by mail. A lot of things were done by mail back in the day, buying clothes, patterns, coursework, that kind of thing. And they used to have an art school lessons online. Not online, by mail. So all these things were kind of bombarding me at an interesting time in the late 50s and 60s, my coming of age, and I got exposed. And with that, I won my first award as a Girl Scout, and been kind of at it ever since. I got involved in an art contest, and I won the contest and ended up in a feature part of the Washington Post, and been involved ever since, and been winning awards ever since. Like that, just had a knack for it. So it started young with a lot of exposure, and I guess the greatest influence was my godmother was a painter, and she gave me my first set of paints and brushes, and I won that Girl Scout award, and I started taking myself seriously then. So the Girl Scout story is a big story for me.
I heard somewhere that a teacher said that you would never make it as an artist.
Yep.
So was that at the time also when you obviously had the influence of family? So I suppose that combated any sort of doubt in your mind or discouragement into going into the fields of art and being creative. Would that be right in saying?
Well, I think that by the time I was formally discouraged, I was in high school, and so I was pretty well defined as a youth. I was a teenager, and I was applying to college. And this is a critical marker for me. Martin Luther King was assassinated, and it was a very interesting era when, right, it was a season of reparation. A lot of the schools came down into metropolis, different areas, New York, Philadelphia, Washington, and they came down. They scooped up SAT scores most likely to succeed, and all of us that they kind of figured could do well with advanced education, they opened up admissions. And so, kind of like the season we're in now, where we've been with Breonna Taylor and George Floyd murders, and this high sensibility to the community of color. This is not the first time there's been a season of reparation. So these schools, Ivy League schools, variety schools, came down, offering us opportunities, but also this is a time where it's the closing out transitional era of Jim Crow laws, and so the segregation conversation was really down south. It was, and I'm in the Mid Atlantic, and we had a taste of it. But Jim Crow laws and segregationists really prevailed. And so, just depending on what part of Washington you were in or what part of America you were in, you were frustrated on many levels. And so, my high school art teacher pretty much was just being herself. Like, you're never gonna make it, and I'm like, okay. And I think also part of that frustration, she had there were two art teachers, one black, one white, two art rooms with an art closet between the two. And there were two of us that wanted to go to professional art school. And she did everything. The white teacher did everything to thwart my application to Rhode Island School of Design. But this is a time when the schools were coming for us. So being competitive and having the door open, it was going to be hard to kind of stop me, but she did what she could do because she wanted that admission for her student. And so, we had a challenge getting my transcript out of the high school up to Rhode Island. She frustrated me, telling me I was never going to make it, and but I had been raised in a most assertive way, so it never really stopped me. Other than I kind of threatened her, like, "Well, you watch and we'll see where that ends up. We'll see where your prediction ends up." She's probably turning over in her grave now. That's for sure. The best thing she could have done was threaten me, okay? Because that kind of fueled me. I'm like, you know what? We'll see what the future has.
So in terms of the graphic design element and how you sort of lean towards that. I mean, I think we'll go on to your thesis in a moment. But was there anything that propelled you to go into that particular avenue, or that particular?
Definitely, life.
Right.
That was not the plan. I wanted to paint,
Okay.
and all my scholarship now is a critical intersection of discussion of that era of studying art and the other. I lecture on it. I'm writing on it. It's an interesting marker for
Hmm.
visual arts, and I was a part of the minority recruitment program at RISD, which had been in response to a March 1970 student demand letter for more diversity on campus.
Right.
And so I arrived on campus. I wanted to paint, and I went up to study with Mailer Ryder, and I didn't really realize the treacherous road for art in America and design. I had no idea. I was just a kid that wanted to paint and got into RISD. I didn't know that I had stepped on a path of being a major player now in advocacy and design justice and all of my work. All of this just because a kid wants to paint a picture. And, here I am with this incredible body of work, scholarship, voice that resounds. But I went to Rhode Island to paint. And I got there in first semester, well, before Thanksgiving. I came up for Thanksgiving to find out my father was terminally ill with pancreatic cancer. I came home for Thanksgiving. He was in the hospital, and subsequently they told me he would be dead in 10 months. And so my whole freshman year, I knew that he was expiring. And 2 weeks before my sophomore year, going back to do my sophomore year at RISD, he passed away, August 1971. And I couldn't return to Providence, and the deans connected a dot, and I ended up transferring to MICA, like Maryland Institute College of Art. I ended up, in the turn of a dime, so I could be, close to my mom. And when I got there, sophomore year is the place where you declare your major. And when I got there and my father had passed away, I said, Cheryl, you better figure out something where you can get a job. He left you money to go to school. You can paint. You'll always paint. You better figure out something else. So I jumped into the graphic design program. And with that, I started right where you claim your major. I started studying design. But it's very unique. I'm going to scoot over here a minute. I lecture on this. When I got to studying design, as I scooted, you see these are all my island people, and
yeah, I can see. Yeah.
All of my island people in Tingman. This is my mom's. It's a Krennic bowl. It's Danish, it's Scandinavian. And see, the thing about the Danish West Indies is that you're going to see this danked high-end design stuff as well as the traditional blue, and so my grandmother was a retailer. That's her over here, my orange floor.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That one right there. Okay. She's a perfumier and a retailer, duty-free retailer, St. Thomas. Right. She's indigenous to Danish West Indies. Okay, so my West Indian family are indigenous Danish Creole, Danish and Ghanaian Creole. Okay. From the Danish and Ghanaian slave trade.
Right.
We were there when the Americans came. So this kind of influence was in my house, high-end Danish, as well as the traditional Danish blue and so forth.
Mm.
And so I had a sensibility. And yeah, my house was high-end design. The Scandinavian stuff, the Danks. This is an example. This bowl is as old as I am. This my mom. She had thimbles and paper clips and mints and coins and buttons and things. This is her kitchen bowl.
All right.
And my grandmother used to send these things up to protect from the hurricane. She would send these things stateside. So, I have vintage Danish modernist home goods in addition to the traditional things. I grew up with it. And so the minute I started seeing design in formal design education, I'm like, I know that stuff.
Yeah.
I know that, and it's in me. It's in my DNA. So I resonated to it because what kid grows up with this is award-winning Krennic bowl, International Design, 1953.
Yeah.
This bowl's been with me as long as I can remember. What kid of color knows high-end design like this, that, when you get formal design education, you see it and you begin to place it. So from here, I journeyed on. I'm like, I'm a designer, man. and I'm an expert. And I'm an expert with Scandinavian and Danish. Okay. Oh, I know Danish. Okay. I could open up an antique store. Trust me. Okay. So, and that's just because my grandmother was retail duty free. And one of the things, just like we save and do things for stock market for our kids, flatware, crystal, and she originally started with working for a French woman, Madame Safran, Backstreet, okay, selling perfume. So I collect perfume bottles, vintage, so I was raised on perfume bottles, my island jewelry, everything high end, because my grandmother worked duty free.
Yeah.
Way before Carnival Cruise, you see. So the ships would come in. The Scandinavian ships, the cruise liners would come in. So all of this stuff, like this is an example. These are embossed.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, these are cabin gifts that would be on the, and I use all this stuff to lecture with.
Right.
Yeah, this is some of my stuff. These are embossed cuffs, and it would right. These would be cabin gifts, vanity gifts on the cruise liners.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a story to all of these trinkets and things. And so a part of it, let's see what else. I got a lot of this stuff. Oh yeah, combs and mirrors. So these things would be gifts on these luxury cruise liners that would come in from Scandinavia to duty.
I mean, obviously, it looks like you've got a lot of sort of collectibles there. I mean,
oh yeah.
Is it a house stacked full of?
Man, I just have a museum. Not here, but I just have a museum. Yes.
Right.
But what's so unique is that all of this is in me, and the curiosity, okay, and the history of I know some things. I know, and my Danish and Ghanaian slave trade. See, all up and down the Ivory Coast there, and all up and down the Caribbean, the colonizers, they're different combinations. So, Martinique, St. Kitts, you name it, Antigua, down what we call Bangalan. Okay. Right. The colonizers mixed and matched with the different, whether it be the French, the Brits, against which I know, I only know one. I know the slave trade. Okay. I know the colonizers mixed and matched, coming up and down. Okay. I know the Danish and Ghanaian trade.
Right.
Okay. Because my family is the derivative work of the the Danish and Ghanaian slave trade. And so that's my maternal heritage that I've done a lot of work with.
Right.
And it comes to my conversation now with, I'm fascinated with the slave artisan and the stories. You know, the art of the island and the woodcuts and the story. It's all in the lectures, you know, all in the lectures of my decolonizing graphic design. You know, I focus on the slave artisan as being the original Black graphic designer, and easily recognizable for me because I grew up with the artifacts.
Yeah.
Okay, and the artifacts of the islands begin to tell me our visual DNA and our story. And so thus the authentic family genealogy and work that I've done, the origins of the Black graphic designer having come from the slave artisan and the first Danish. My friend wrote a book. This is an example. This is Rico Canero.
Okay.
Okay, and Rico, Denmark just released runaway slave ads from the World Danish Gazette, 1770, the first publishing of the newspapers. And from the Danish Ghanaian slave trade. And so here is where you get our first artisan and, you know, the woodcuts. And so my work begins to document the history of the Black graphic designer. And I'm authentic to understanding it because I grew up with the imagery and my work and my family. And so here we are. But I didn't start with this. I just wanted to go paint and my dad died. Okay. And I ended up studying graphic design and I found myself, you know, and everybody was real surprised. I said, yeah, but I grew up with Danks. Yeah.
Well, as you say, it's your DNA. I mean, one thing I wanted to push you further on was the impact of your master's thesis, transcend problems of the Black designer to the success of the marketplace.
This one.
That one. When you were writing it, did you feel it was going to have as much impact, as much on the sector in general, on your career? You know,
that thesis is the thesis that just keeps giving. It got published. It got published here in 1987.
Right.
And it took flight. You know, it took flight. All I wanted to do was graduate. And I got to New York and I entered Pratt grad school, and it's a long and windy road of a story, but I was not allowed to do a design project because it would be too easy for me. And I was given the charge, make a contribution to our industry. And so I knew what it meant. I had understood that there was a problem of Black designers missing. And I enlisted Dr. Leslie King Hammond, who's an acclaimed art and African art historian, who was, when I got to MICA, they pretty much assigned me. I was 19 years old and she was a freshly minted PhD with a brand new job. I think the only black teacher around. And they said, this poor little child is grieving, and they put her with me. And I've been with her 50 years. She's been my academic coach. And I called her and I said, these people at Pratt are not going to let me do a design project. I got to write my way out of this to get my degree. So I knew there was a problem. And I'm not the first one to talk about the problem or try to do something about the problem, I'm the first one to have made scholarship about the problem.
Right.
Okay, there were designers in front of me who like this. This is New Communication Arts reprinted a show, the Dorothy E. Hayes exhibit. I just wrote an introduction, and they republished a show that was at New York exhibition in 1970.
Right.
And CA originally in 1970 reported on the show, and the publishers and I agreed that it would be a really good thing if we could get that article out of the card catalog and republish it for this generation.
Right.
See, this is where you had to have been here. The original document of this was in the card catalog. So I had grown up knowing that there was a show, but this generation didn't know there was a show. So this is an example of where the Black designers and letting people know.
Yeah.
And so this is running right now. I wrote a historical introduction to the show. You can get this right now. You can order it. 3 magazines covered the show in 1970. Print Magazine, Idea Magazine, Communication Arts. And so what Communication Arts is, took it out of a card catalog, reprinted, and I wrote, I'm a trade writer. I rewrote the article that talks about the history of the show. Right. So you can get this now online. It's their Communications Art Typography Annual 12, January, February 2022 edition. And it documents the original show. There were all these awarenesses up from the Renaissance, Harlem Renaissance, and after abolition. There's always been this angst to collect our story. I document the different shows and events and articles that try to let us people know exist. Yeah. But I would dare say I'm the first one with a piece of scholarship. And that's what turned the needle, is the fact that I have a piece. The thesis was a piece of scholarship that was published. And it was just no longer complaining, awareness, a PR event. I documented it. And once I documented it, it's become a primary source. Once I documented it, and it's full of cross references and footnotes and my process for doing the thesis. Dr. King is an academician and a scholar, and she guided me through the conversation of what I was going to need to write more than an art project, or even right. So it's got tables and charts, and it's a piece of scholarship. So with that said, it took flight.
So why do you think? I'm preempting the question. I was going to say, has there been, as far as you're concerned, bearing in mind the significance of the publication, and you're still, it's given you the sort of the catalyst or the momentum, I guess, to move forward and be on the trajectory that you have been for the many years that you've been lecturing and guiding people and making people more aware of design, graphic design, and shedding a different perspective on it. Do you feel though that there's evidently it's still an upward struggle, but in terms of further documentation, impact on the way in which the industry looks at itself internally, do you feel that it's still an uphill struggle? Do you feel that there are sort of cracks in the institutional armor, that things are beginning to change, that you're not the only one basically advocating what you're doing?
Just by numbers and years, the industry has multiplied in participants.
Hmm.
And there are scholars now who are writing some very important documents. This one is just published, The Black Experience in Design,
Hmm.
and several academicians came together and pulled together um, this treatise. 70 of us write on the experience, and it's curated. Actually, one of your namesake, Dr. Leslie Ann Noel.
Okay. Must be a relative.
Yeah, she's from Trinidad.
She may be. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this is an example of, and what's so curious is about 4 times
Hmm.
I'm other authors, I'm primary source. So,
Right.
which is an honor for me. I mean, I have an entry, but if you got 70 artists and there are about 4 of them, every time I turn, someone is quoting me from my primary work. Okay, so you got 70 artists, designers, academicians, scholars writing, and I'm a footnote in their work. Okay, so I'm not the only one. I'm the first one. So I'm footnoted all through the book because everybody's using like even writing the forward. You know,
Hmm.
Cheryl D. Miller. Cheryl D. Miller's all through the book. Her footnote is all through the book. Okay, there are other people writing, and so my work has become primary source. So that's what's been important. So the answer to your question, we got scholars now who are writing.
Hmm.
Okay. And what's the honor is that my work remains to be primary footnote. Everybody uses Cheryl Miller. Either the thesis or all of my trade articles continue to be,
Hmm.
they continue to be primary source. Cheryl Miller says, quote, footnote, da da da.
Hmm.
So, and I think that will, my presence in that being cited will remain. But we have scholars now that are writing new scholarship.
Hmm.
But it all does stem from a primary work. Somebody had to start the ball rolling, and then
Right.
even before me, which I bring up that people don't know,
Hmm.
is I bring up the work and the footnotes of W.E.B. Du Bois because he was before me in documenting the sociology of the slave artisan. And so that's a part of my work is pulling those footnotes forward.
Yeah.
Let me show you what our community sociologist says
Hmm. Hmm.
about the slave artisan, and he's the first one. So part of my work now is I know because of the length and time and the errors that I've grown up with, I know what I'm supposed to be researching. So the younger ones, you don't know what's in the card catalog to even search. It's beyond what's in Google. So I'm frantic, you know,
Hmm.
Alzheimer's is not what runs in my family. So while I can remember it all, I'm doing the work as far as I can to pull things out of the card catalog and bring it and digitize and bring the information forward.
Good. Yeah.
So a piece of that discussion is I'm the first one that's done a formal treatise and scholarship.
Hmm.
But before me, okay, and you would have to kind of live through it or know to look,
Yeah.
is the work of W.E.B. Du Bois. And he's a sociologist to the entire Negro community, but
Yeah.
he has discussion. Like, this is another uh, Newton Lewis, The Other Slaves. This is a vintage book. You can't even find it anymore.
Hmm.
And it's essay after essay after essay from I would say from the late 1800s
Hmm.
into the 1970s that document the slave artisan and the slave and the graphic, the early pressmen and graphic designers
Yeah.
after slavery.
Mm.
Okay, and so, like I said, my work is to pull all these things forward,
Mm.
so new scholarship can be created.
I think it would be good for us to have at least a short list, at least, of some of the books that we've highlighted for readers or viewers of this who aren't too familiar with the industry or the sector but want further information. I
Well,
think from what you've just said, though, I think one question that I have to pose is, you talked about the past. Would you say in the present and the challenges that black graphic designers have now is different to what you've experienced when you were starting your career?
I don't think it's a whole lot difference. I think there are more of us,
Right.
and I think that we have to stay vigilant, and it will be okay. And that's just because there are more of us now succeeding
Mm.
and prospering. Um, there is quite a cadre of black designers, versus the era of little to none.
Mm.
So the years have produced a very large tribe that, but I feel we have to be vigilant
Mm.
because seasons of opportunity are shifting. And as I said, critical marker was 1968,
Mm.
and everybody had a high degree of let's help these artisans. Um, George Floyd is 50 years in a political cycle of culture.
Mm.
Everybody came helping. But I'm going to tell you now, and I mean no harm in it, okay? The news cycle has changed. And we now, the window, uh, those who could get in to continue to work this advocacy, work opportunity, we're in. And I believe that the workforce has multiplied and we have to stay vigilant. But with due respect, the news cycle has changed.
Right.
And now, rightfully so, our hearts and minds and prayers are towards Ukraine, the Ukrainian artists and artisan. Um, our our attention is being um, focused towards this horrific experience that we're all witnessing, and what we've been going through as a community from pandemic through George Floyd across the global network of march and protests.
Mm.
We're now all bonding um, with the Ukrainian artists. So, rightfully so. But we have to pay attention to trends and shifts
Mm.
and attention. And rightfully so, our hearts and minds are going toward, in the arts, it's going towards the Ukrainian artists. I see it each and every day, and rightfully so.
Mm.
So, with that, we just have to stay vigilant to our purpose and our cause, share our heart and generosity and concern to others, and keep going.
Mm.
Keep going.
Mm.
Um, and even our hearts and minds are going to the Ukrainian Nigerian mixes,
Mm.
okay, and the African community that's being disenfranchised in Ukraine.
Indeed.
And
Yeah.
we haven't even gotten to the artists who are there who are African and Ukrainian.
Mm.
And we
Indeed.
have blatantly seen them on the news say, no one cares about us. We're being left in this mess. And these are Nigerian and Africans who have found their way in Ukraine to study. And so we know there are artisans there
Mm.
left in this. So the answer to your question is there are more of us, and we have to open ourselves up to the entire lack of peace worldwide, globally, and stay vigilant, because from 50-year news cycle to another, we got complacent.
Yeah.
And we got complacent, and people forget.
They do. They do. But as you say, there is an opportunity. I suppose the circumstances of our ability to communicate, to have a knowledge base, is, I would say, probably easier than it was. I mean, obviously, I'm limited in terms of my age, and I can't go as far back as some other people. But you know, technology does allow us to network far more. Technology does allow us to maintain that camaraderie, and learn from each other. I mean, again, your experience as as an American is far different to perhaps graphic designers. The same very graphic designers you're talking about, artisans in the Ukraine, in Europe, anywhere else in the world. And I think it's important that bridging, that ability to cross borders, but nevertheless still speak the same language is important.
Yeah, and I think also I'm pretty well traveled. Okay, and so and the fact that my maternal lineage has put me in what I call down island pan Caribbean.
Mm.
I've been all through the Caribbean. Um, and there isn't much of it I haven't seen or experienced. And especially doing my family genealogy, every trip I ended up, you know, through hours of microfiche in census records and,
Mm.
St. Kitts, St. Martin's, St. Eustatia. I've been all over the Caribbean. And uh, when, and I have traveled. My husband is international business guy, and um, he's taken the family around the world, and so I think, and having four different places, I've had the breadth of being more uh, than African American from DC.
Yeah.
I'm what the kids call BIPOC, and genuinely so, Black,
Mm.
Indigenous people, person of color, because of my family heritage, and I've taken the time to make sure that I bond with each connect, and because of our story, my family story in the islands. I'm also Filipino Creole.
Mm.
That's World War One, so an incredible, deep, rich Jim Crow American Navy story
Mm.
that brought my grandfather in with the U.S. Navy because the Negroes were taken out of the armed services during segregationist era,
Mm.
and we were colonizing, imperializing the Philippines, and the Filipinos replaced the coloreds in the Navy. And so when the U.S. bought the Danish West Indies, there he is over my shoulder here. Grandpa came in from Cavite, Philippines,
Mm.
and my grandmother and her girlfriends worked the USO, and he married my grandmother, gave her 3 Filipino babies.
All right.
And so this rich story,
Mm.
I have dealt with the complexity of um, globalization
Mm. Mm.
through the derivative works of World War One into my life,
Sure.
and doing that much work and traveling, the Mediterranean, um, and seeing the alleyways and chapels where Christ walked and those representations, the depictions, the church was always the first client of the visual artist.
Mm.
To see true Byzantine replicas of a Black Jesus, areas of Croatia, Montenegro, Greece. I've seen these things, sir. The Parthenon and Athens and the like, And so seeing the peoples of the world give me this rich, there's still some places I've yet to go, but the big spots where you get dimension, starting with the Caribbean, you just all down island ain't the same, man. Okay, and so understanding each island and each colonizer that sought to steal Africans and bring them to these lands. Our carnivals are different, our smells are different, our colors are different, our festivals are different. Man, our accents are different.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Okay, and so we're one love, man, but different things, man. And so having all of that is most unique in North America and design education in the academy. Most unique.
No, definitely.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm finished.
I was going to say, in terms of, I know we've focused a lot on the graphic design element, but I think again, as you're talking about your history, your heritage, your experience of being very well traveled, how it's evidently sort of manifested in your art over the years. Your pieces in this year's show. Can you provide some sort of insight, some explanation as to the background of those paintings?
Well, yeah, I've been exploring, and I haven't all gotten it together yet because I do so much writing in my academic work. These pieces have. I am working on a body of work that I'm not settled into yet. Okay. I want to leave a body of island work. Island artists have come, and they at least in St. Thomas, in the Virgin Islands, we've got some big name, Larry Glick, Camille Pissarro, I think it's Pissarro, the Impressionist, as an example. They come and they come onto the island and live 15, 20 years and paint and leave a body of work. And so Europeans have been doing this. They come to just come to the Virgin Islands and paint, and then they go back to Paris. I'm exploring exactly what I want to leave.
Okay.
And the pieces that are in the show are I'm studying color, I'm studying style. They are a few typical scenes of St. Thomas. And my favorite one that everybody, she's not for sale, but you can get a print of her, is Miss Ting, I think, Pepper Ting. Yeah, Pepper Ting is, man, Miss Pepper Ting, she belonged to every island. Okay. She's your island buddy for everybody. Okay. And I'm exploring color and style and imagery, and man, you just be on her balcony, she getting ready to go down in Dalawang and look, and she eating her fish and her cake and thing, and that's her bangle, and she She an island woman. So whichever island she coming from, she an island woman.
Uh,
um, and so also, so I'm toying with and playing with what I want to leave. And so those prints are island scenes. They're influenced by color and impressionism. Um, I'm a designer and an abstractionist as well. And so I'm working on some abstract expressionist paintings, which focus on the usage of the newly voted in and approved um, Virgin Island mattress colors.
right.
There's a set palette that had um, St. Croix, Debbie's son. Um, you can find all the history of it. They had a cultural project to develop a mattress specifically for the U.S. Virgin Islands,
Hmm.
and it's a specific palette. And the mattress has been made, and the colors have been approved. It was maybe a 5-year project or so. You can read all about it online, but it finally got approved, and the mattress has now been produced. You can buy the cloth, and so the U.S. Virgin Islands has a set of colors, and
Mhm.
so um, I'm working on a collection of abstract paintings using the palette colors. I have 2 paintings already
Hmm.
that use the mattress colors.
Right.
I'm a designer, so abstraction uh, and the fact that abstract, when done well uh, and with intentionality, um, is a form of art that transcends subjectivity and focuses on the color. I want to celebrate the U.S. Virgin Island colors. So those paintings are new, and they're very specific to the mattress. So it's a combination of my studies now, what I want to leave, because there are bodies of work that are there that artists are known for.
Hmm.
And I don't want to uh, replicate those in any manner. They're charcoal drawings, things that have been known to the island as postcards. Um, what's true to my story is I am a designer
Right.
and luxury high end. Um, and with that, when I think of abstract expressions focusing on the celebration of U.S. Virgin Island colors, it might not look like anything that has ever been left in an archive for the island.
Right.
But Cheryl Miller has never done anything else that anybody else has done. So she's always done something new. So,
Exactly.
so a designer's treatment of the U.S. Virgin Islands mattress colors, I envision with all the rebuilding, I would love to, um, uh, they're still rebuilding. The hotels are
Hmm.
being retooled, reframed, rebuilt.
Yeah.
Um, I would love to be able to um, furnish one of the hotels with my work, whether it be in the rooms or
Hmm.
show or availability.
Hmm.
So I'm working. I'm a commercial artist, so I'm working on an archive that I would like to um,
Hmm.
leave. We had some. We had some. I'm always got stuff over here. I had some. I did some fine art mask at the beginning of the pandemic.
Hmm.
Um, Taking some of my scenes and putting them on, on mass.
So the
Uh,
pandemic was during the pandemic. Were you quite active quite prolific on the painting front?
um, yes, with the mask, but what the pandemic has allowed me to do is to lean into this format.
Hmm.
And I've been teaching crazy at 4 universities and lectures and meeting people.
Right.
This has given me an opportunity to do what I couldn't have done in real time. Honestly, I couldn't have all the people that I could meet and talk to and uh, be intimate in conversation.
Mm.
This format has been able for me to reach. I've been able to write and make an impact.
Yeah.
It's almost like I've been called into sabbatical space. So pandemic's been very good, good for me. So
Well, it's definitely helped us connect. That's one thing in terms of this year and last year's Caribbean festival. I think it's been quite useful. I have, I suppose, one more question, and then I think we have maybe one or two people who have registered this panel as guests, and I suppose that would be, with all your experience and passion for the arts and passion for community, for those particularly emergent artists at the start of their careers, start of their graphic design careers, particularly, what words of advice and encouragement would you give in a quick sort of 1 minute, 2 minute summation?
well, first off, you got to get as much education as you can. Don't even try to teach yourself on YouTube University. No shortcut. It's impossible. There are a lot of shortcut things going on now. But that you got to get to be competitive. You got to get as much education as you can get, and specific education, design education. All right. And so either in design college or universities, or good, strong design programs in liberal arts colleges. If you can be specialized with one of the Art Academy schools, accredited schools, that's going to be your best. Go as far as you can. All right. Number one. And number two, which we don't always like to do or agree. Our industry is extremely pretentious. The graphic design industry is extremely pretentious. And with that said, you must play the game. Okay. And playing the game is winning awards. So just like fine arts, you have to exhibit, competing and sacrificing the money. It costs to put your work in global competitions. But when you win, it's comparable to the same experience as fine arts paintings when you are exhibiting. Well, where did you exhibit? Where did you exhibit? Yeah. Okay. Awards breed awards. And so early competitions, you get your name out there.
Cool.
But it's a sacrifice, and a lot of people say, well, I don't want the attention. And I'm like, yeah, you do. You want the attention. And you want the record, you want the recognition. Yeah, you do. And that's going to net getting getting jobs. Yeah. So that's the industry. That's not necessarily Cheryl Miller. That's the industry. And once you learn that that's a part of the game, then, well, if you want to be in it, you better play. So, yeah.
Those are the rules.
Those are the rules. So if you look at my Wikipedia, you'll be like, oh my God, she's won everything possible. I'm like, yeah, I sure have, with intentionality. And now what's nice is that now I'm getting industry recognitions, which you cannot pay for.
I tell a quick lie, actually. I have another question for you on the front of what you've just said, on the back rather, of what you've just said about the awards. Whilst you're not pretentious, I can say or ask, what would you say has been your most I don't know, your proudest achievement when it comes to sort of your recognition, your accolades? I mean, I know you recently won the Cooper Hewitt award. Are there any particular awards or accolades you look fondly at and think, yeah, that's something I can actually feel?
Well, everything that's happening to me right now, I'm saying I'm an overnight success that took 50 years.
Okay.
So everything that's going on, all this stuff behind me here, okay, and I got more coming up. Watch me now. I got 2 more awards coming up between announcements. Well, the announcements are coming up. Okay. these are now industry recognitions,
Right.
which are different than um, awards or competitions that I could have won.
Mm-hmm.
And those recognitions of hard earned work for diversity,
Mm.
you know, I'm not awarded necessarily for being a great designer. I've got competition awards for that. But laying my life down for visual arts and design justice, diversity, equality, equity, and inclusion,
Mm.
and making sure that we have jobs, we have access, and saying and doing things that most people wouldn't dare. I've been a brazen, brave, courageous
Mm.
soul.
Mm.
My, mine is the island woman in me. I can tell you off in a minute. I'm just going to tell you the truth. um, yeah, that the fact that I'm being remembered,
Right.
that's precious to me because no one's paid me for this. There's
Mm.
been no monetary award or reward
Mm.
for representing us in the manner that I have. No, no, this wasn't a client.
Sure.
This wasn't a job.
Mm.
Just years of going through it myself and years of saying, I don't want anybody to go through what I've been through. So let's
Yeah.
do something about it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the answer is everything that you see going on now
Mm.
is the greater picture acknowledging that I've been there all the time.
Good. And we can look forward to watching further accolades over
Oh
the
yeah,
coming.
yeah. I got some nice ones coming up. I
Good.
can't. Yeah, they got me. Don't say anything till we announce. I'm like, yeah, okay, no worries.
Oh,
So I
well,
got that. I got that PR program. I got to behave to. But
okay.
yeah, I got one coming up in April. Well, I would say they're all coming up. They're all
Well,
coming up right now. The announcements of the awards.
they're
And
queuing.
so with that, I'm very honored because they're hard earned.
Good.
For the legacy.
Mm.
I've left with intentionality a footprint so that further scholarship can be done.
Excellent. I congratulate you. Let me see if we have any questions.
Sure, I'm here.
I'll open the questions to. Right. Do we have any questions for Cheryl?
And I will say that given the fact that if you get one of my prints there, I've only have a limited set, I think, featured in the show. So it, and I think I said they would be signed.
Right.
They would be collectible given my resounding voice in what I do. They are collected. They are collectible for those who are collectors. What they're worth, I don't know, but I'm collected. My work is collected, and so anytime you get anything from me, and especially an original,
Mm.
I can't promise you a thing. I can only tell you that people have always embraced my work and collected, and you know, don't wait till I die, though, man.
No, don't. To all our listeners and viewers there, please don't buy now. But no, we don't. I don't think we have any questions. But I will say, and I think we've done the hour and some. But all I can say is it's been an honour, a privilege once again, Cheryl, to speak to you.
Well, Mr. Noel, thank you, and continued success in all that you do. And if there's anything you need of me, you know where I am, man.
Okay, it's
Man,
it's,
just be down island.
it's recorded, so yeah,
Yeah, just hail me up, man.
great. Thanks very much.
Okay, take care.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.